like to present you to Sami. I think the nice thing to say is that Sami brings me my greatest triumphs and my greatest frustrations. I think that's fair, isn't it? You pushed me out of my comfort zone more times I'd care to actually kind of confess to. And I'll start with a 24-hour stint in Saudi. It's all your fault. But you are,
Right.
you're the director of the JMS group. And don't be fooled about the young looking. You are young, but you've had, is it 3 or 4 careers already? You initially started in aviation, and then you flew planes. You probably still have your pilot's uniform. Um, and then you were like, no, no, let's go into aviation finance. Then when the pandemic hit, you were like, not quite sure about this. So you felt the pull of going home. You left England. Oh, this is the cat. Shall we introduce the cat? This is
We should definitely. This is our new colleague. She's 4 months and a half, and she likes to take the microphone during meetings. She'd like to join in. But
yes, yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you've gone really in the, so you kind of came back home, and it was only meant to be a short stint, help out your dad with the, which was mostly a tax and audit business in Brussels. And in the last 2 years, you've just gone from just another client manager to a director of the business. You've opened the Antwerp office as well as the Brussels office. And in the process, I think it's fair to say you've pushed, you cajoled, you've chucked your toys out the pram for the firm to get with the times, to modernize and digitize. And you tripled the firm's revenue in 2 years since we've worked together, 2.5 years. I know it's only 2 years. My torture has only been 2 years. You've tripled the firm's revenue over a million. Sami, after that introduction, do you want to give a quick pen portrait of your firm now? What have I missed off?
Um, actually, yeah, it's always fascinating to hear about yourself from someone else. Yeah, that's true. That happens. One of the things I could say is it's time flies, and I didn't realize how smooth the transition has been into joining the family business in a sense where it hasn't been smooth. Working with the family is always interesting, not to say something else. But JMS is really something that is part of the brand of the family and the DNA. The name actually stands for my brother's name, my father and myself and my mother. So J for my brother, M for my father, and S for me. There is my mother there. It's just a tax on it as well, because a lot of people ask as if we've left mom out. But the interesting part is that when I joined in the firm, I wondered, what is it that we could change, we could improve, we could bring it up to date. And we've been having an introspective look into our business, which is not always easy, and we've tried to position ourselves into a modern boutique, almost a family office type of firm, which is delivering, well, we try to deliver one-stop shop to our typical high net worth international clients. Those are families that we care for, and that's part of the marketing strategy, is to say we are a family business working for and with family businesses as well, and that I think that reinforces the trust. But there is also something else that is quite important, because it's all about trust in us in our industry. Is that a lot of the clients have seen me growing up, and it's almost as if they got to see the evolution and they've got to trust that evolution. And years later, we are next to each other, sitting and having professional conversations about maybe their legacy or the inheritance taxes, or maybe their estate planning and this kind of sort of stuff. Expanding is difficult because we opened in Antwerp. Antwerp is, for those who know, is the diamond city. It's a city where in Belgium there is a lot of business to be made. There is a lot of international clientele as well, and we started to actually market it into a different niche. And this is where I've been, implementing myself for now 2 years as the branch manager. Although I just had to find a title, because really what we do is problem solver. So you have that mindset of being an entrepreneur and try to get stuff done. But on a service base, what we do is we have diversified from accounting, which is the usual, and we try to do more and more corporate finance and consulting and digital bookkeeping solutions in general.
And I think I know we've got people all around the world here. So just in the chat box, where are you in the world? Because I know we've got more than just the UK, but we do have a lot of people in the UK. So just a couple of things that you may not know about Belgium.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about Moulin Fouet and famous detectives. We're talking from an accounting side. So the first off is that it's a highly regulated profession. You might go, yeah, but that's the same where we are. Sammy's not allowed to advertise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when
It's
we say put your prices on your website, you physically couldn't under the terms of whatever. So one of
mm,
the reasons that you built the JMS brand was that the two of the companies, the spin-off companies, to allow you free from these restrictions, to allow to give far more of that one-stop shop. Another thing people may not realize is that Belgians love bureaucracy in a
yeah.
way that makes our life, look quite simple. So, for example, and I don't know whether it's quite in or it's about to come in, but every time you raise an invoice in Belgium, A, it's got to be digitized, B, the tax authorities know about it, and then they start demanding your VAT on that. Uh,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and this is the direction of travel that is coming to us. You look at the digitization and where people are with the cloud. I'd say in the UK, we're probably, despite what we've just talked about, we're probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years ahead of Belgium. We're in that journey. And two other little quirks that you need to know about is you and I talk about social, and we're not talking social media. It's the equivalent of payroll in the UK, but it's payroll with bells on. So what do I mean by that? It's both the payroll, it's the it's your equivalent of national insurance. So to give people an idea, the actual cost of hiring someone in Belgium is double. Whatever you're paying them, it's double because the rest goes to the government for this social. And I could see Olha has just put a hand up. So if you want to put a question in the chat box, that'd be great, Olha. Hope I pronounced that correctly. So the other thing is that in Belgium, the clients don't just expect tax, audit, accounting, bookkeeping. What they also expect is that the tax goes into the legal side of tax. So your firm, and you'd call it judicial, but is actually the legal side. So it's a far more holistic one-stop shop. And so I'm just going to ask you something, you much of the work you've been doing is getting this business kicking and screaming into the digital era. Can you explain why you did that? And I've given a little bit of a hint here, but also the impact on the firm's revenue.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I've realized is that, like me, being the son of a father's owner's business, we had a lot of clients who have children who were growing up, and those children were raised in the digital era, where when they have a question, they just Google it and they find it online. So they have this expectancy of result and service-driven attitude, which put us to reassess that we shouldn't be providing what we call reactive accounting, but proactive accounting. People want to have beforehand a clear view on their taxes, on their revenue, on how much VAT they need to pay, they should be receiving in order to accommodate accordingly. And one of the biggest challenges was to actually move the firm from being retroactive into proactive. Is still an ongoing process, to be honest. This is something that we are still moving forward, but digitalization has helped. Digitalization has helped because we have signed some early partnership, which I'm very glad to have actually has signed at the time, because a lot of accounting firms, sorry, and accountants saw these new entry markets as disturbing the industry, and they thought they will replace accountant. And actually, I don't think it's about replacing; it's about adapting and the evolution, of the services, and to be able to accommodate those new tools. Otherwise, they're going to disrupt. A good example is Uber, the same as the taxi driver. We had in Belgium what we call a lobby of taxi drivers. They had the monopoly of the city, and they were making a lot of money because that's a flat rate, and everybody was agreeing on that flat rate, and that's the way it was. People felt that they were getting scammed. There was a lack of transparency. There was a lack of willingness to collaborate and to use its industry. And to be fair, it was a bit the same with the accounting industry. It almost seemed dodgy for some of the entrepreneurs that we hear from. So the digitalization has helped because it has put a clear transparency framework for which we could, present the figures and present the problems and therefore explain it and have an added value. So that's one of the biggest, I think, challenge that we overcame through digitalization. The second is that we've also had COVID, and COVID has really changed a lot of people's perceptions. It was not specifically okay for people, unless it was, a transatlantic call, to organize a call via Teams. A lot of Belgian citizens and business owners would be doing business traditionally, hand to hand, face to face. If you've got to discuss business, let's have a coffee and then let's have a chit chat about it and let's see how this evolves. Which is absolutely not the case anymore. Now it's completely okay to have just a Teams. It's actually an automatic question that a lot of people ask. Is it, on site, or is it via Zoom or via Teams?
Yeah.
Which is something that, when I used younger, it wasn't the case. So I think that's one of the interesting one. The other thing is that it has also helped us to streamline operations. By having a digital system, we've been able to implement different steps. And one of the things that I've noticed is that people would like to have transparency over the process. The same way you're ordering on Uber Eats or delivery your food, you want to know, the food is being cooked, it's in the kitchen, it's in the make, it's on the way. So we had the same attitude with the digitalization of our services, and we thought, we might as well have that upfront communication so the client doesn't bother us, so it doesn't have to call in to ask, where is my VAT? I haven't heard about my VAT. Well, calm down, Karen. We've got 1 month and a half to go for your VAT, and we still have time. And by this digitalization and this kind of tool that we would present, they would see this evolution. So it would reduce as well what we call pollution. That's one of the biggest one, I think, that we also try to tackle with that. And last but not least is also because we started to present our services as a product, we also started to invoice as a product, and which means that we have a flat fee per project, and therefore encourage us, but also the client to trust us, because we were trying to be as efficient as for this fee to be able to be invoiced, and which means the client will get a result from it, which it's not necessarily the case with the timesheet, because on timesheet you are actually spending time, and the more time you spend, the more revenue the firm generates, and that is counterintuitive for the client, because the client is just thinking, he's just invoicing me longer to take this longer, and I could have done it in 1 month or two. So that is that. I think the general sense is that the shift is not only improved our internal process, quite frankly, but also contributed significantly to our revenue. Since we had a product, we could scale it, and
Yes.
we could look into a portfolio. And I think that's the key, is to realize that an accounting firm is managing a portfolio. And hence why we created another company, which is JMS Group, which is a sister company. That sister company make all the auxiliary revenues. So we have the accounting firm that has the licenses with the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Justice, because we're also appointed by the court. And therefore, we have the ability to go forward with that, and then to maximize revenue by creating ancillary revenue. And that is something I've learned from aviation industry, actually.
Yeah. And so I'm just going to summarize that there. When people are looking at it, when I first started to work with Sam and his family, it was very about Mr. Majid.
Yeah, the big boss.
Mr. Majid, the big boss. And as a result, clients just came and called him and did this and did that. And, one of the big things we had to address was a lack of cash flow, a lack of transparency over pricing. You'd say to the client, it's this, they'd go to Mr. Majid and you go, oh, no, that's fine. Absolutely fine. And so one of the big things you did as a firm was tighten up about what we're delivering. We would call it put into packages, but basically you took the service and you productized it. You stopped doing payment on completion. And so it became, your cash flow went, as you said, you turned around to your father, was it a couple of months ago? Or rather, he turned around to you and said, our bank balance has never looked healthier.
Yeah. It was, I think, 2 weeks ago. I've never had that. Dad
Yeah.
called me in the most random ways while I was in the office, and he's taking intervention. Like, what are you doing? What are you up to? I'm working on this file. Okay, it's fine. I was just checking the bank account, and I realized the cash flow has never been this full. And I said, well, thankfully, it shows that some of the things that we've done worked. And I think it sounds unrealistic from another perspective, in a sense where you wonder and you wish what it takes to be able to get there, but it's not that complicated, in a sense where you need to have a strategy, and once you have a strategy you can start to capitalize it. And I think this is one of the things that we lacked initially. We didn't have a clear strategy, we didn't have a right vision for it. We have first have a vision and then implement that vision into a plan. And thanks to Heather, we've been, I think, able to somewhat do that. And then plans into milestones into objectives, and start to look into this. It's a small progress, but continuously on a long term, I think it actually helps.
Yeah, and it's you've gone from everybody doing a bit of everything, and you still have this problem, and this is one of the things I know we're working on is you've got all the clients. You now can see every bit of work you need to do for the client. That's now planned in, but the team kind of goes, I'll do this bit. I'll do this bit. So now it's about driving through that you own this file from beginning to end. Um,
That's it.
but one of your many challenges is you've gone from the boss's son, and as you said, many of the long-standing staff members, clients knew you as that kid in short trousers, in shorts. How did you go from being the boss's son to the boss? Le chef. For example, we were out in Istanbul only 2 weeks ago now, and it was sunny and warm, wasn't it? And
It's
while you
cool.
were there, it wasn't Mr. Majid or Mrs. Zara leading the day. It was Sami. So how did you overcome those challenges? What were the challenges of going from the boss's son, the irritating oik, to actually the boss?
It was incredibly challenging. I'm not even going to lie. It was incredibly challenging because it's about gaining credibility in the eyes of others, and the first thing you need to do is to gain credibility in your own eyes and to believe that you're capable of doing so. And I'm not going to say I had the best confidence, but having had my previous experiences has definitely helped me. So I worked in finance before, and I've had my previous experiences with other corporations. So it's not as if I'm just a son's joining in and helping. Actually, I have had the experience in portfolio management for larger companies and for important assets. So I kind of knew what I was somehow doing, but it has to convince, it takes much more to convince dad. But quite frankly, I don't know if I told you that, but I think I really convinced him the day that I managed to do my own audit with administration for a client. It was 150,000 in litigations, and I signed for 8,000 with the government. And I think that day, me dad was like, "Okay, you're not that bad, me son. You might as well just give me an advice or two." Otherwise, I don't think he would have initially listened. But that definitely helped. So showing him that it's not about just marketing and digitalization. It's also having the technicalities that it takes to be able to work hands on the files, and showing him that I'm willing as well. So that has helped. You stepping into family business, the problem is that you most likely have to convince your clients first, then your colleagues second, and then your own family members. So I think that helped because the clients would come back to give feedback to my colleagues or even my family, saying, "Oh my God, we won this case in court thanks to Sami. It was a 3.5 million that we had in litigation, and we actually won. I'm so happy." And then it would, come with utter joy to the firm, and it would be difficult for the rest of the team or even me dad to look the other way. So that has helped. I think the focus was really not to care too much of getting that credibility in a sense where I need their acknowledgements. I think it was about trying to do the right thing and trying to provide real value. I was somehow not, telling people off just for the sake of telling people off. Actually, I'm known in the office as being the cool guy. I don't shout a lot. I don't get angry that much, which is also sometimes something that we're working on with Heather, because it's difficult to come from, your mate's colleague into their manager, if especially you have some time to do some tough decision. And I think that has changed. I think that has changed because one day we got to fire someone, and my dad wanted to do this together, and we came as okay, we were deciding and we're making this strong decision because it's a healthy decision for the company. And that's where I think I took the seat from being a passenger into giving him a hand in the ride. But it takes a genuine trust and communication, which is bloody hard. It's
And
hard.
I've sat there, and I think one of the problems with family businesses is the next generation that's taking over often has the same problems in their characters
Yeah,
as the one they're taking over. So, very often when I'm there with you and your father, I'm trying to act as referee, particularly when the conversation is going through French, English, and Arabic all in one go.
absolutely, absolutely. But you do have my back, right?
but 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 part of that issue is that it's you've got two very passionate people, and we talk about building these complementary strengths around you, and that's one of the big things you've had to do
Yeah.
is Who do I need around me? What does that look like? Because you and your dad are far too similar.
Ironically, and we make a joke of it, saying that we're both Aries, and it has something to do with it because both of us are stubborn. But I think there is nothing more. I think it's hilarious to see two stubborn, passionate people not communicating well, trying to tell each other that they're right.
And,
And that has created. Let's just say that family dinner became very interesting.
yeah, yeah. And I look at it and I look. Your mother and I are probably the only two people now that tell your dad and you what's what.
Yeah. I think that's very true as well. It's about finding your network, your people where you
Yeah.
can find your resource. People who will tell you as it is. And that was, I think, one of my worry when I was beginning, because I thought I might as well have one of the team member, telling me off and this and that, and am I doing it wrong or not? And then you start to, question yourself, and I think you can go into this kind of rabbit hole. I think it's important to know who are the people who can tell you as it is, straight up, no BS, and will tell you if you need to change, and how could you change. But that is coming back into the network, and the network is something that is, I think, the hardest, because it's about, we are in a people's business, so we don't have, although we may have the technicalities to understand figures, we don't have the technicalities to understand everybody. Everybody has a different perspective, and when you have to work with your network, you have to trust them, you have to delegate them. And I think that's part of the challenge as well, is getting to know who you're working with or
Mm.
for, and that is not
And
always the
and
easiest.
that picks up a really interesting question, because part of your journey was you were always trying to prove yourself to your clients, to the colleagues, to your dad,
Yeah,
always trying to prove yourself. And actually, I had to turn around to you fairly early on and say, Sammy, you can't do it or you'll break.
yeah.
You had to learn to delegate. And I know it's work in progress, but how did you learn to take that step? As a natural people pleaser who is a high performer, how did you learn to delegate?
Well, that's very rich of you to assume that I have learned. Quite frankly, no, I think by the force of the scheme of things, I don't have a choice. When you start to have that much demand, we are very privileged in a sense where we have the privilege of refusing clients, and that's something that is quite good, because it gives us the ability to understand that there is a high demand, and we are the one who needs to cope with it. And therefore, since nobody's going to be perfect and nobody's going to be identical to you, you might as well delegate one specific responsibilities, and try to find the people to whom you match with the values that you can therefore start to delegate. I think delegation is hard, but not delegating is harder. So it's about choosing which one you want to find. I'm a perfectionist at heart, quite frankly. I'm really working hard on this, and sometimes it really keeps me at night awake. I'm not even kidding you. I do sometimes wake up frightened, think, "Oh my god, I forgot this, and it's urgent." Then you start to look at the picture from a different angle, and you ask yourself, "Is this urgent or is this important?" This urgent in the sense where it has to be done, or has it not? And if it is not urgent, then you might as well just do it together for tomorrow. So delegation is about delegating small, delegating fast, and delegating with the outcome of saying it doesn't matter what the result will be, as long as the result will not come from me, and I will work from on that result onwards. And I'm still, quite frankly, I admit it's one of my weaknesses. I'm still trying to manage that. So if there is any advice in you guys want to some advice, I'm glad to, I'm happy to hear.
And there were two things that you did that helped you. Number one was your practice management system.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
actually took each process and broke it down. And I mean, it's still work in progress, because we talked about last week putting in checklists. For
yeah.
those of you that want a fun fact, and the word in French for checklist is checklist. Um, so there's still work in progress, but you and Mr. Majid know that actually you're not going to move the firm forward with your dad wanting to take a step back unless he's got the confidence that he can delegate and the process will be done properly, which is why, once again, moving services into packages, having a clear line of sight, this is what the client is getting, has been so important. But the other thing you had to do with delegating was put time in your diary for it.
Yeah. So that's my personal challenge. But I'm trying to organize my time per priority and per day, and trying to install a routine. But going back into delegation, Heather, you're absolutely right, and I think it's about systems, not people. I think that's one of the things I've learned is about how we can implement a system. We have a fail safe in the case where when things go wrong, and how and where can we amend that, or where can we jump in. And I think that was one of the challenges that we had to look into. And I've realized that I might not be the best at what I'm doing, but I might definitely be a good manager. And a good manager is putting a structure where the rest of the team can rely on. And that was the first thing to do, actually. So
Yeah.
implement checklist, and we found the trick by asking my dad to do himself the checklist, so it will be as perfect as he wants it to be.
Mm.
So we got him to work and participate within the transformation and the management implementation, rather than sit back and let us implement something and boom, that's what you got to do and that's how you need to do it. But yeah, look into it. Yeah.
So, in your view, what have been the main drivers of tripling the firm size over 2 years? I know we've covered a lot of them, but what have been those main drivers? Because that's quite substantial. You weren't taking a 100 grand firm to 300K. To get to over 1 million and triple your firm in 2 years is quite something. So, what were the main drivers?
So first of all, I think one of the positive aspects of my father's behavior is because he didn't say no. We already had a good portfolio of clients. We reduced it, but we are now managing over 300 companies, which is something that is it is something to do with. It's not as if we started with 5 files. So that is that. The second thing is that I actually approached with a financial perspective. I'll be honest with you. I looked into the top line and the bottom line, and the first thing that I looked into is how could we streamline the top line, and that's why we went into managing and selling product as services, so we could easily scale up. And the second thing was to look into the operational design, and that implemented, of course, hardware and software to have systems for which we could have operational due diligence and make sure that this is respected. To be fair, it's not on point, but we still moved, and we've seen an incredible result. And the second thing is by diversifying. You need to cross sell with the client. The client is asking initially, for the balance to be done, and we realized, and we hired, an external consultant who just happened to be a professional in corporate finance and M&A, who has a background in finance and banking, and he's now the one introducing financing, requests to banks for clients, and we've taken also a flat fee there, where we have the ability to say not only we're going to put your records up to date, but on top of that, we can go where you need to go. So what is the real request? What are you asking such in a hurry for your balance when we have until, I don't know, May deadline? Oh, because I would like, to finance this new truck for my company. It's a beautiful truck, and it's a 100K that I would like to finance. Well, fair enough. We might as well take care of it.
Mm.
And gives us the ability to be able to show to the client that we're relevant, not just for the taxes and balance sheet, and we have an amount of set of skills, and also to diversify, because quite frankly the statistics in my perspective were indicating that in the coming years we're going to have more and more automations, and therefore the value that we need to give to our clients is not about just bookkeeping, because that will be automated. It's about creating value. And with the portfolio, I think what you want to do is for the people to think of you when they need to think of you. And it could be, in a proactive or in a reactive manner. So now people, when they have problems, it doesn't matter what kind of problem, and sometimes it's a bit annoying to be honest, but when they have a problem, they need a lawyer, they need a notary, they need a bailiff, or they need a banker, or they need a real estate agent, or they need payroll optimization, whatever. They think of us. And therefore
Mm.
we become a Spock. And by becoming the single point of contact, we are able to cross sell, as simple as that. So you now triple easily your portfolio when you have 100 clients and you sell them 300 stuff instead of selling it 100 times.
Mm. And introduce us to two other things that you've really done. So we talked about the service expansion, pricing it correctly, packaging it. There were two things that you did. So number one, I need to remind people that if you hire someone as a permanent employee in Belgium, their advertised salary, your total remuneration cost for that one person is double. So,
Yeah.
you bring in a fairly newly qualified at 50,000 euros. You're going to be paying 100,000 in total. And what people don't realize that the social welfare side of Belgium is such that if you're unemployed, the government will give you 30 grand, 30,000 euros a year to live on. So we have a much harder regime. So,
Yeah,
one of the things you've done is you've started offshoring the basic work
yeah,
and
absolutely.
building that relationship up, because it's that we whinge about the UK and salaries, but Belgium puts it into perspective.
To give you an idea, sorry, Heather, just to jump in, to give you an idea, a contract, an employment contract is so strong in Belgium that it has legal value and financial value for you to contract a mortgage, even if you've just signed 6 months ago. Because it will be so hard for your employer to get rid of you that you're most likely going to either get that income for, ad vitam aeternam for a very long time, or you're going to get, a certain amount, a second amount of that as a replacement, and that tells you a lot about the system. But then we're going to get into politics, and that's not
Yeah,
really.
we're not getting into politics, but I think it's, we whinge about it in the UK, but actually we don't have nothing compared. So you have a lot of contractors now. So you have some highly skilled experts that come in and do work on files when needed, but you don't have the payroll burden. And the second thing is that you've done that client portfolio management. You've literally sat your dad down and gone, they haven't paid us for 6 months.
Yeah.
They're not paying us the right amount of stuff if they were paying us. We need to exit them. And some of them you've been successful.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest challenges we have had with that with portfolio management is that he's become a friend to the client. And I understand that because you're building a relationship and that's also part of the commercial aspect of it. But then that's where perhaps my position came handy in a sense where it didn't have to come from him, but
Mm.
also had to back it up in a sense where we have to together to decide which client we want to keep and which client we don't want to keep. And quite frankly, let's be honest, everybody knows they're good clients in the background. It's people who are just here because you're cheap, or people who are just here because they're using you in a sense, and people who are really valuing your services. And I think you need to go for the latter because the latter will follow you and will help you build your company more than the first one. Because the first one, as soon as something changes or it doesn't go in their benefit, they will move, they will leave you. And I think that's what dad needed as well, to realize that some of the people he didn't expect to be such character, actually as soon as he was in one or two inconvenience would complain and say, well, I'm very sorry, but we're gonna take another accounting firm, please do so, please do so.
Yes, here is the door. So I'm going to ask one more question. And in your view, what's held back the growth of your family business?
Was held back.
Yeah, what has held back the growth of your family business?
Should I press the button and say dad at the same time? Or
Well, there is
no.
that resistance to change from your dad, and the needing to convince him, and moving from the fiery argument that this is the right thing to do. But what else has held it back? Because I know that you've had massive personal health issues.
Mm,
Um, you know, at one point they were testing you for cancer, and your
yeah,
mum has also had massive health issues. So,
yeah.
what else has held you back?
I think there is a lot of things
Yeah.
actually, and it's funny because I think isn't Mike Tyson who said everybody have a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it was. We had a plan. I promise you, we had a really good plan until we got punched in the face. So mom's brain tumor was discovered last year. Um, and it was a shock, quite frankly, because I was the one communicating to the hospitals and managing her file. And to be honest, it's still now I'm not processing it. I'm trying to in denial, but then at the same time, yeah, we've had that. That tells you a lot how much it has impacted us. But I think that the important part is that we tried, and I mean we tried because we all have the willingness and the care for it. But we try to work together with each others. So not spend time on dividing sorry our effort and energy, but try to focus on. I had. An aviation attitude, quite frankly. The training, because I also train as a pilot, that we train in the RAF or either in the military bases, we learn how to aviate, navigate, communicate. So first of all, get yourself safe. That's what it means. If you're in the road and you're hearing a bad news, might as well just pull over and stop and digest it. And that's what it means. Navigate, see where you are and where you need to go, and then communicate. Then do the talking. And I think that has helped me because it's helped me focus on what's really important in crisis situations. And mom's health was the uttermost important. Although it was challenging, people are not always thinking and have the same value as you, and some people might have a different perspective. And we realized we counted on some of the staff thinking, okay, things are going to roll. Me and my dad, we're going to be at the hospital quite a lot and we'll be fine. Then we realized actually some of the staff didn't do jack shit. It's as simple as that. And then we realized, okay, well, we're not going to get played over, but some of the people took advantage of us in that sense, and therefore we had to really have a look into how we can gather that. So I think what held me back, I don't think it was one thing. I think life is breaking in different aspects. There is a health aspect where even myself, I got sick. And it helped me realize that you're not Superman, you're just a simple human. So you need to have simple approach. You might as well focus instead of trying to run in every direction. So that was that. The second thing is you need to set priorities, and real priorities, not what you think is a priority, but what is the uttermost priority. And that helps you reshape. And when you get into a situation where you're sadly in a life death kind of situation, you are uncertain of the future. Actually, it turned out to give me a very perhaps good lesson, which is live in the moment. And I have started to focus day by day. So today, I'm extremely pleased by today just being today. And it's also almost philosophical because you wonder, what if today is my last day on this earth? Would I want it to be frustrated during hours and trying to pull my hair with this client who's just disrespectful at this, or do I not? And I think that helps you as well to take some perspective. Heather used to say at the beginning of this challenging time, and for which I never got the chance to say publicly, but thank you so much, Heather, for having been there during that tough time because it was shit.
Yeah, well, I was all saying to you, what are the gift you've just been given here? Annoying, but I just want to wrap up here with, so what has held back the growth? So we haven't gone into your own health issues, but let's just put it this way: there were 3 months where you were told not to leave the country or travel because your immune system was not up to it.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about I got a bit of man flu here. We're talking some serious stuff. Um, so that ill health that you take 3 directors of the company and 2 of them have major health issues. Of course, it's going to hold the business back. So the fact that you've done what you've done, even without this, is pretty damn good. It took a while for underperforming team members for you to get to grasp with it, and for your dad to take the decision, because he is Mr. Yeah, of course I'll do it. Yeah, of course we'll do it. No. Do we need to do this really difficult piece of action? So you've had to be his conscience, and you've had to get him there. And as you said, the business wasn't unprofitable when you arrived. It was highly stressful for your dad. So it was
Mm.
really about convincing him first, and then team members, and then clients, to move forward with the, let's get this checklist in, let's get this process in. It's very easy to bring in, you've got Danny, who's your corporate finance expert. When he comes in, he writes big checks for the firm.
Yeah, absolutely,
But you wouldn't have been able to do that without having done the digitization beforehand, because you now see it and you now have those interconnections. So I'm just going to quickly open it up to questions. If anybody's got a question for Sami, we'll keep to 2.
Should I get ready like this TV show as well? I need to press the
Yeah,
button.
yeah. So into the chat box if you've got a question for Sami. It's quiet at the moment, but people are thinking. So while people are thinking, particularly for those of you that are in the UK, we're running in March 2 workshops, re-energize your practice. The sort of thing that we've done with you, Sami, exactly re-energizing your practice, just that we did it with you rather than your dad. I'm just going to put, they're on the 11th of March and also the 25th of March. I'm just putting the 11th of March in there. There's a link to there. I'm just going to find the 25th of March. So one of them's in central London, the other one's in central Manchester. We've now sold 11 of the 30 tickets. So the tickets are going fast, which is great news. And interestingly, Manchester is proving to be the most popular on the 25th. But I'm going to be very naughty, aren't I? If you want to get a ticket for £50 instead of the early bird price of £100, full price of £295, just pop this if you just pop that code in on the checkout, you'll get a ticket for £50, which is just purely our costs. But Sami, I don't have any questions for you. So do you have any last few words for everyone apart from don't do it?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one to conclude. You'll have to do it, quite frankly, either by force or by fire, like we say. But you'll have to do it in a sense where the demand is evolving. And the question, and I think perhaps I should have something with that. The real question that we had about the firm was, is it worth doing it? Should we do it? Should we not do it? Should we just, stop and hold and, conclude this the past chapter, which is 25 years of business and accounting firm, or should we just, try to do something different? And of course, unless you're driven by the financial decision, which I completely understand, it's about trying to, at the end of the day, sell a service, and the
Mm.
service to please the person you're serving for. And that's one of the things that I've really appreciated in learning in the UK is customer services. You guys have excellent customer services. It's not necessarily the case in France or in Paris, where you're going to have some interesting, very not nice customer service.
Yeah.
So that
So
is that is
I've
that.
got a very quick question from Ashwini. How easy or difficult is it to integrate the accounting firm environment in Belgium? Can you practice as an accountant without being a chartered or regulated?
No, it's very difficult. I'll be honest with you. And if my dad wasn't, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have taken that route because it is regulated and it's an official. I call it the legal mafia. That we have a president and he has his own accounting firm to tell you. So and he's got his mate who's the vice president and then the other mate who's the secretary, and interestingly enough, like Putin, they get re-elected quite a lot.
Mm.
So that is that. So I wouldn't, but if you do, please do, because Belgium, one of the beautiful thing about the Belgian market is a bureaucratic country. So people will always need help with forms and declarations and corporate finances. There is a lot of requests. Logistic in Belgium is quite good, but it's not just that. And quite frankly, it's about creating value. So if you're creating value, it might not be just doing the accounting yourself, but perhaps facilitating around the accounting services or the industry, perhaps creating a smooth process or operating or improving the quality of the service. Belgium is a market. They're so far behind. I'm no offense to the Belgians. I'm one of them, of course, but I think we are so comfortable that we don't seek innovation. So we let innovation comes if it has to come.
Oh, Ashwini says if you're a chartered accountant from another country and not a Belgian chartered accountant, I
Oh,
think I'll answer that one. It's practically impossible. You've got to have the pieces of paper, you've got to be signed off by the minister of whatever and whatever and whatever. And actually, one of your challenges at the moment is you need to get your licenses so your dad can officially take a step back. Um,
absolutely. And I think just to clarify, actually, I would like to highlight this. The problem with Belgium is that it is considered as not not a tax heaven, but a tax hell. Not even kidding. I'm not even kidding you. It's ranked third in the world. People don't know that, and it's only financially and tax-wise interesting if you have what we call a holding or perhaps a company that generates above 2.5 million in revenue. Then you can benefit from a lot of advantages. But you need to know that 65% of the budget from the state comes from the salaries, so the workers, which means that what we call SMEs are really the bread and butter from the government, and
mm.
that's where they take the money from. The international corporations, they don't pay much. To give you an idea, I was working for an airline, not to tell you which one, and we paid peanuts. And I mean really peanuts, peanuts. So I think it's quite interesting to keep that in mind. But I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating against my territory. I'm a fan of this country. I just do believe that if it is something that someone would like to do, I think there are easier countries to do it and to do it quite successfully and easier. I would invite you to look into Luxembourg. They don't have.
Yeah. You keep saying to me, I'm going to move to Luxembourg. It's going to
Yeah,
be easier. And
yeah. No, but it is. To give you an example, I don't have, as a CPA, I don't have the right to do payslip. And the trick that we found with the firm is that we have two firms. So Midad is, a director of one, and I'm the director of the other, which is the consulting services that provide auxiliary services. And you're allowed to work within this framework. So the same as a Big Four, to have, EY law and EY accounting are on the same building with different floors and different companies. And that's kind of the approach we took. And you're allowed to do that. In Luxembourg, you don't have to. You can have one accounting firm and do payslip. You can do markets. You can do sales of assets in the largest form. Yeah, it's easier. So quite frankly, if you're interested in penetrating European markets, I mean, you're always welcome if you want, and I'll leave through Heather my contact details if you want to have information. But have a look into other territories first.
Yeah, it's I leave people with the thought that Belgium is a tax hell, not a tax haven. And also we are, particularly in the UK at the moment with the changes to our political regime, we're seeing a lot more costs put onto businesses from the government. And you know what? It's still not the same as Belgium. So, merci beaucoup, Sami, pour votre temps today. And thank you very much for your time today. I had to learn French to work with you.
Yes, yes, and I have to learn proper English.
Your English is fine.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. No, I'm not sure if there is any other questions, but
No, there's no other questions. So, Sami, you can go and go. Whoop, that's over. Thank you.